Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. Thank you for tuning in to this month's Developer Coaching News Edition broadcast. My name is Tara Van Cleve, and I'll be your anchor, bringing you the latest updates straight from the Oracle product teams. We have a fantastic lineup of experts standing by to cover today's top stories. So on the line, we have Chris Rice, SVP of Software Development, and Jeff Smith, Distinguished Product Manager for Oracle AI Database Tools. So let's get started. What is the latest scoop?
Hey, Happy New Year, everyone. I know it's late for us to be saying Happy New Year, but I'm going to take liberties. Happy 2026. Um, Today's session, we're going to have just the database component, and February we'll bring back our friends from Oracle Cloud Infrastructure to share what's new over there as well. So the biggest thing we have is something we actually announced in December, but in case you missed, this is coming up in the next few days. We'll be releasing our 26 AI Enterprise edition of the database on-prem. The first distribution will be the Linux x86 64-bit. For more details on exactly what that means and what's going to follow, you'll continue to reference the MOS doc that's shown here.
This is uh this is I mean, people have been asking since 23 came out, when can I get it on-prem? People have been asking, it's been the number one question everywhere. So it's finally coming. So now people will be able to, grab it, create your own Dockers, do your deployment, start thinking about how to use new features like vector search and whatnot, um, actually on-prem, as opposed to being required to go to database in the cloud, or it's been available on Exadata for a long time, but of course that's an Exadata. That's not a plain database on a computer or VM. So this
Yeah,
this should be an exciting way to kick off the year.
just in case you missed the previous news, in October at AI World, 23 AI was rebranded to 26 AI. So if you've been looking forward to 23, this is that. It's just 26 now, and it's an easy update. Um, if you're already on 23, it's just a release update vehicle to get to that.
Someone in the Q&A said they're still on 12.2. I highly recommend you upgrade from
Yeah.
12.2. That was more than a few days ago.
I'm not surprised to hear people are on 12.2. Solid release. It's been out of support for a while now. Um, Definitely get up to 19C. 19C um, is basically the terminal release of the 12.2 family. So it should be an easy upgrade to get up to 19C. And then once you're on 19C, it's not bad to get up to 26. Okay, so for the rest of the time, we'll be talking about some of the things we've been doing here in the AI world for any and all of your Oracle databases. Just a quick recap. The multi-context protocol allows you to connect your agents to other things, and we've released an MCP server for the Oracle AI database, which will work on 12.2, by the way. It'll work for any version of the Oracle database within recent memory, including 26 AI. It's a local MCP server, so it's part of our database tools kit. We provide that via SQL CL, and it allows for easy connectivity to the database. It's secure, the password's encrypted, all of that good stuff. And it allows your LLMs to not only generate queries to help you answer your questions and complete your tasks, but now you have an execution path to do that into the database. So
Well,
obviously
so
security.
on MCP, Jeff, there's a big news that happened in December on MCP. I don't know if you folks know about, but MCP, there's a new foundation that is actually running MCP now. So where this thing came from was, I think it was the previous November, so November or October maybe, 24, Anthropic came out with this MCP protocol as a way to basically feed the AIs. MCP stands for, of course, Model Context Protocol. So Anthropic threw that thing over the fence, and everyone latched onto it in absence of any other standard, right? So it took off like wildfire last year. If you look at last year, like January, February till December, January and February, it was kind of, that's when we found it, and we started looking at it and started paying attention. And of course, as folks hopefully know, we released it in June, so that was pretty quick. And then if you look through the end of December at where all the vendors starting adding MCP support all over the place, it took off like crazy. So what happened in December was Anthropic, OpenAI, and a bunch of people got together under the umbrella of the Linux Foundation and actually created I believe it's called the Agentic AI Foundation. So it's an umbrella underneath the Linux Foundation. And there was a couple things instantly donated for the foundation to steer and mature and grow in a normal foundation committee kind of way. One of which was MCP itself. So Anthropic now doesn't, and I don't mean to say they weren't open, but they were very open, very collaborative before, but it simply wasn't organized in that same way. Like our team was interacting with the MCP team at Anthropic through Discord and through in-person meetings and whatnot. Everything went great, but now it's under an official foundation. And Oracle is actually one of the members of the foundation. So I want to say it was the gold tier. It's not the top tier, but the next tier down, the top tier filled up super fast with, I think, Anthropic and OpenAI, those guys. Next tier down, Oracle's there. So we'll actually have some input now in helping steer and bringing new feature support from MCP as fast as we can.
Yeah, I need to edit the video. I think I said multi-context protocol. That's 10 demerits for me. It's model context protocol. It's a
Multi-model.
hard one to remember because the P is protocol,
It's
it's
master
two words
control
I have to
program, right?
remember. Yeah.
Everyone remembers
So,
Sean, right?
yeah. Security being paramount. We talk about security a lot. Um, when you set this up in your development rig or in your query rig or whatever you're using to interact with the Oracle database on a regular basis, the SQL program can be set up to run in such a way that you're effectively limiting what it has access to. So it was already set up that way in the sense of, you would use a database connection for database work. So if you had a database connection tied to a specific user, that user, of course, has a set of roles and privileges, and it can only do certain things. However, SQL, the program, has access to do things via various commands, like, say, hosting out to the OS. It can create files, um, spooling, being able to take the output of queries and writing to local files. There's a command for changing your database password. And the agents can interact with SQL and see all of these features that are available and then take advantage of those. And if you're keeping an eye on what it's doing, then you should be okay with that. However, you can now set a restriction level when SQL starts up. So by default,
Well, you always
in
could, right? This is a feature that's been. So the other thing, again, Jeff and I both explained this, is we took the protocol in with our existing toolkit and figured out how to expand our toolkit with MCP as opposed to something net new. So Jeff's talking about a feature that's been in SQL for eons. I don't know how long, which is this restriction stuff.
yeah,
But it becomes more
now it's
more and more important, as Jeff was saying, security wise, securing your access from an AI to a database, uh, there's nothing more important.
I think we changed the default restriction level and it's better documented now. But yeah, it's been there for a while. Um, so if you're uptaking a new version of our MCP server and you're finding all of a sudden it's not able to do more than run queries, and if you're in a developer power mode and you want it to be able to access local files, so we can use that load command to load CSV into a table, you just need to change the restriction level. And in our SQL docs, you have an explicit list of commands that each of these restriction levels opens up. Um, the second runtime option for SQL is this home flag. So now I can point the runtime of the MCP server to a directory where it can find a list of connections, database connections. So you could have your normal environment where you're using our VS Code extension, you're using SQL, and you've got access to all of the databases you've ever used. And then on a secondary directory, you could have maybe just 2 or 3 connections defined. And these are the ones that you're cool with the MCP server using. So you can direct the runtime instance of our MCP server to this private directory, and it's only going to see those connections versus the default list of everything you've ever used in our VS Code extension or in your day-to-day normal command line interaction with SQL.
And this one came about because customers, like everyone here, all hundreds of you guys, wanted to try this SQL MCP server But because of the way we stored connections, it would it would have access or the ability to try many connections that were stored from your VS Code from wherever. So what this lets you do now is take this SQL CL MCP, put it in an agentic framework, LangChain, there's many of these frameworks, and actually give it only a singular connection or a couple connections only by reallocating, redirecting where those things are stored. So it's gated by the ones that are defined in this specific directory, as opposed to my desktop where, I don't know, personally, I've probably got about 40 connections going.
Some DBAs I talk to laugh when they see my desktop because they deal with hundreds, if not thousands, of connections. So these connection objects that we maintain, they're organized by directory. So the easiest thing to do is just copy and paste and hold the directories that represent those connections that you want to have in that secondary home. We did make also some functional improvements. Do you want to talk to the async one, Chris?
Sure. So, as I said, we're trying to keep an eye on what's possible with MCP. And one of the things that I learned was possible, uh, well, this one's a schema information, so we'll do with the one on the left, the one on the bottom bullet first. So one of the things that we found possible, of course, is you can just give an LLM access through MCP, and it can write a select star from all tab calls as good as any of us could. However, that makes a lot of round trips because what I found was it was doing between 8 and 10 round trips simply to interrogate the dictionary. So list my tables columns, get the data types, right? It was list the indexes. It was kind of uh, what? Kind of like a Roomba vacuuming the room, right? It goes down a path, it figures out what it needs, it turns around, it goes to the next path, and eventually it gets all the information.
And it
However,
would be inconsistent in how it gets there. Like it would do iterations, versions of that between sessions and not consistent at all for agents.
absolutely. So what we did is we packed that all up into a single MCP tool now called schema information. So under this schema information tool, we internally go and join all tab calls, indexes, get the primary keys. We get all the things basically for anyone that knows the info command from SQL CL. If you haven't, give it a try. It's a better describe. We basically do that and pack it up into one payload and give it back to the LLM in one shot. So it's less interactions, less back and forth, and for the currency of an LLM being a token, it's less tokens to process. The right-hand side of this screenshot is part of what was announced in Juan Loaiza's keynote at AI World this past October, was it? Which is AI enrichment. So one of the good things is we're all in Oracle databases all day. We kind of know what the tables are, but the LLM doesn't necessarily know. So the cryptic prefixes that we used for years in our naming standards, it may not understand those naming standards. Um, so this schema info command tool in MCP also takes into account this AI enrichment in the database. So in that AI enrichment, you can give the table names aliases. You can basically attach any name value pair properties to a table, a column, a procedure, whatever you want to try and give the AI more context about what the thing is. And then using our MCP tool, it comes across. So we actually did this experiment where we took a schema and we asked NL to SQL. So AI, we asked AI to interrogate the schema. The schema was very well named, no problem. I think it scored like in the 80 percentile for getting the correct answer roughly. Then we went and actually obfuscated all the names. So in various forms, right? Shorten names, cryptic names, do all that. And as you expect, it went to zero, right? So it didn't know the schema, it didn't know how to correlate things. And then all we did was we added back some of the original names, original information through the AI enrichment for the annotations, and it jumped immediately back up in the high 80s. So the schema enrichment stuff, AI enrichment, it does help. It does work. So
This feature is not tied to 26 AI. You can use this for any Oracle database.
I don't know about 12.2. That person might need to upgrade to 19.
Well,
Um,
please, everyone needs to upgrade to 19.
And then the other tool that's on this list is the asynchronous support. So in reading specs, I mean, we've all read specs. You kind of start to feel what's possible from a spec versus, the straightforward. So one of the things that's possible in this MCP world is a tool, like we have the schema info tool front and center. So we'll pick on it for a second. It's allowed to take multiple variations of inputs. In other words, like a procedure overload. Like everyone's probably written an overload in some shape or form, right? PL/SQL has overloads, Java, Python, everyone has overloads. So more or less the same thing happens at the MCP layer. So what we did is we took our normal run SQL tool, which takes in a string and the model, right? Because we log that to the database so that we know who's executing. And we added an alternate overload to that that says, by the way, run this asynchronously. And then what that happens is we internally run the query, of course. We put it on a background thread and we telegraph back to the LLM a job ID. So then you can actually check on the job ID and say, has this job finished? Because some of the problems we were seeing is one of the calls I was just on this morning, people were complaining that queries ran over 5 minutes. Of course, when a query runs 5 minutes, might be totally expected, but then you have to unwind all the experiences and user experience behind that. So that means your chat window's locked for 5 minutes. That means you're praying your VPN doesn't drop for 5 minutes, right? You're hoping that the network routers don't hiccup, the load balancers. There's a lot of machinery when a query runs a long time. So to try and make the experiences better now, one of the new things is you can say, by the way, run this query in the background.
Or as many queries as you want to kick off so the agent can like have several things cooking.
I think we capped it at 5. I think we
Five.
said no more than 5 in the background, just out of sanity.
And five's better than one. Okay, so it's not just about our MCP server. We have a GitHub project where various Oracle teams have contributed their MCP servers. We've had some new ones pop recently. This is the existing list. Um, on the pure database side, the Oracle database team has released two. There's one for docs. So an interesting concept, an MCP server for our documentation set. Um, so when you want to ask questions, if you want to explore how things work in the database, there's now a tool there or a set of tools there your agents can use to more easily navigate the Oracle database docs versus it going out and searching things on the web. So again, that should be a lot more efficient, um, fewer token use, less memory consumed, um, better
And the next one
interactions.
down there is from the JDBC team. So they just pushed out a MCP server out there. If you're thinking you want to build your own MCP server and you're in the Java space as your language du jour, um, go check it out. It's a great starter toolkit on how to create your own MCP server. So you can leverage their samples, their examples, and take that and very trivially start producing your own. We'll have more on this next month, but one of the things that we're looking into, right, is everyone wants NL to SQL, which is, hey, here's my database, here's 10,000 tables, just go answer my questions. One of the big questions, and Juan, I think, talked at this in his keynote too, is then that NL to SQL request, it might come back with a trivial SQL statement, 5 lines long. The one I literally this morning was talking to a team on, the AI generated a 1,000 line long SQL statement. So then the question of trust comes in. If the LLM generates a query 1,000 lines long, can we, the people, the humans, read it, parse it, understand it, nod our head and say, yes, that is a 100% accurate query? That's a long way around saying one of the things in this JDBC toolkit is the ability to actually have a stored query and then have MCP access to that query only. So you're not asking it to do an NL to SQL from scratch, but you can actually have a stored SQL that is a trusted, vetted, and again, we have a lot more coming on this about how to trust, how to build up that trusted list of reports and whatever. But this JDBC repo gives you a great head start on thinking about that kind of stuff.
And then over on our pure cloud side, various services and components of Oracle Cloud Infrastructure now have MCP servers. Um, if you're a developer or a DevOps engineer and you're setting up your agent, you can configure one of these or many of these. Um, you might want to set up an environment or a workspace where various ones of these are enabled for specific tasks, so you don't overwhelm your agent with too many tools. Um, but you could combine two or three of these and do some really cool things. Like, so for example, you could use the pricing MCP server along with the not resource, maybe one of the resource ones. You can basically have it set up Terraform that represents a stack you want to deploy in OCI, and then also figure out how much that's going to cost and adjust it just by asking questions and describing your network architecture. And of course, there's a network and a load balancing MCP server there as well. So those are all available in the link Tara has shared. Here are those
There's
links
two
again.
questions from chat I'll grab before we just toss the links up. Someone asked, basically, can I do this with my true business user, right? Log in with your SSO, IAM, Azure Errata. Is that the new Microsoft thing? They renamed Active Directory.
Intra.
Entra. Um, we have answers for that coming out of the box. But there's many ways you can do that today as well, but not specifically with our toolkit, but you could wrapper things around it. And the other is somebody said they're using ATP database. Can we upgrade to AIDB? You're already there. So in cloud, if you're using ATP, you get two flavors, two versions. You can choose 19 or you can choose 26. So if you're already on a 19, I think there's an upgrade button. If you're
Yeah,
on 26, you're already there.
you're already there. Um,
We got a few more minutes, so we will keep our
yeah.
Q&A open.
Someone asked, I don't know if I understand their specific question, but in general, someone was asking, hey, how can I make use of Oracle for like personal projects? Um, there are various ways to get your hands on an Oracle database. We, of course, have our always free instances in our cloud, but you can always go over to freesql.com, use your single sign-on to log in, and automatically get access to a user in a database that we're hosting. And with a single button click, you can go create a connection in our VS Code extension to work with that database. And that's all set up as well for MCP. So like maybe 20 seconds of pointing and clicking, and you could be up and running, talking to your database running on our servers via your agent versus you having to write SQL. Or of course, you can point and click, or you could write the SQL via our SQL developer extension. So that's something to consider. And someone else was asking about EBS versions supported. It's all about the version of the database that EBS instance is running in. So like our specific stack, it's all about the database. And then whatever applications are running inside that database, it's all about what the agents are able to understand. The cool thing about EBS, it's a pretty well-known application because it's been around for decades. So the LMs are generally pretty good at generating the queries to find your data in those instances. If it gets stuck or isn't able to find your specific iteration or version of that application, then the AI enrichment stuff can come in handy there too. Because it's not just about like bad table names. You can explain relationships like, hey, these tables aren't physically joined, but logically in the application they are. So these are the joins I want you to use. And you can also even say things like, hey, here's a preview of what the data looks like. So a lot of times I'll see agents like want to stream out the first 10 rows of a table just to see what the data looks like. You can skip all of that and have that included in um, the metadata tool that we have. So it gives a list of the tables, what they stand for, what they're related to join wise, and also even like what the sample data looks like.
Hey, there was a question, Jeff. Someone asked, how do I get access to this free SQL thing Jeff's talking about? It sounds amazing.
Let me do a quick alt tab demo.
The short answer is Jeff's going to pull it up, but just go to freeSQL.com and you can go from having nothing to a supported by our ops team. Like our team actually builds and runs and manages this thing. Um, Connected from VS Code in, like Jeff said, maybe 20, 30 seconds.
FreeSQL is the literal URL. You've got your choice of instances to come into. I'm actually logged in, so it knows that I'm Jeff. So I have my actual own private schema, but you do not have to log in. And we have our sample schemas here preloaded, and you can do read-only anonymous queries. If you do choose to log in, then you can say, hey, I want to connect to this database with my local tools or toolkits, and we give you the sample like driver or programming language to get running. Or you can click this button and it will automatically open VS Code, automatically install the SQL Developer extension, and then automatically open the create database connection dialog and paste in all of this information minus the password. So if I click this button, it will change and update my password and show it to me one time in clear text that I can then save off.
And then
So
if you're like me, you skip that last step Jeff mentioned by saving it, and I
yeah,
totally forget it, and I never save it, and I shoot myself in the foot every time because I have to hit regenerate every time I need to connect again.
all you got to come back in here is click the regenerate button and you can do that. Um, yeah, but I can do anything in this database from like general a developer perspective that I can do in a regular database. It's just running on our servers. You don't have to download a container or a VM, no drivers, unless you want to use SQLnet connectivity to get up into it. But this is freeSQL.com. It's got tutorials built in. We're working with the docs team so that as you're reading about like say a new partitioning scheme, and version X of the database, and it's got the sample code there. You could actually click a button and actually run that on your schema on your FreeSQL instance to see what it actually looks like.
And this is new, so it's supposed to be past tense, but I will say we're actively, there's a deployment coming today on here that's going to add more features. And we're actively working with the AI team in OCI to bring NL to SQL and that type of stuff in Code Assist here. This is a good platform to get your feet wet and try things out.
Teasing the people on the news. We promised we weren't going to do that, but
I know
stay tuned for new stuff coming out later today.
it'll be news
Uh,
and I think deployments
can
in
we
about
load
an
our
hour.
data and run SQLs? Yes, you can load your data and run SQLs. Um, if you've got CSV, there's multiple ways to load that up. SQL CL has a load command. I've used the agent in our MCP server to just say, hey, I've got CSV files over here. Go put it in a new table for me using the load command. Rips right through it. Um, we've had the load from Excel and CSV wizards and SQL Developer Classic for a long time. We're getting ready to do an update in VS Code so you could actually point and click your way to get that data loaded. And yeah, you can run SQL statements and or scripts through the web UI, or you can even do it from your desktop tools. So it's just based on the interface you want to use, what the path would be.
Yeah. So the catches here, there's not very many. I think we limit you to 20 megs worth of space and you have to stay active. So if you come here, create a bunch of tables and disappear for 91 days, we will delete this account and you'll have to come back and reconstitute it. As long as you're active every 89th day, it's there forever. So it's not a
But
transient fiddle. It's not, it doesn't go away. It goes away when you forget about it effectively. And that includes your history, your schema, your tables, right? And connecting from your Python library. Like Jeff showed the connect from VS Code. We generate you the Python scripts too to connect to the thing and whatnot.
if you're worried about losing your stuff, just do what developers are supposed to do. Save your work, um, back it up. You could easily redeploy it if you need to set up your account from scratch.
And with that said, obviously this is meant for a learning platform. It's not meant for someone to build a production system and, whatever, do fantasy football betting amongst you and your buddies or fantasy soccer or whatever, right? It's not a production system. It's a production system in a stance of learning, trying, right? Not to build upon a platform to build on.
Someone's asking, can we do rant anomaly detection in this SQLfree.com? Um,
The
so
ML stuff, I don't know that all the ML
I don't know
stuff
if the
is
machine
available.
learning functions are in here, but all of the all of the out of the box default functions would be in here. Um,
And
you could,
if you want to use a function that doesn't show up, ping Jeff or I. We're trivial to
Yeah.
find on social, LinkedIn, whatever. And we just have some vetting to do before we turn features on.
But you could also hook up your Python notebook to this thing, and if it's got a small amount of data, you could run local Python machine learning functions.
For example, this is a database 26. You could very trivially put some data in here, write a Python program that extracts the data, calls an AI and does vector embeddings, and inserts those vectors back into the database and start playing with vector search inside the Oracle database.
All right. We will wrap up today's news edition. And just to let you know that this is an ongoing series, second Tuesday of the month. So we'll be back February 10th. Just a big thank you again for taking the time, and we hope to see you at the next one.